Hey everyone, it's Theo from Spectrum Gardening. So one of the most common questions we get asked by not only by people at the farmers markets, but also people that we know, our clients, is how much they should be watering their garden. Well, there's no one size that fits all. Even in different parts of our yard and different parts of the garden, each part requires a different amount of water. However, there's a few things to keep in mind. If you want the plant's roots to go through the soil and to go deep and seek the water. So if you're going out every day and you're just kind of sprinkling the top of the soil, your plants have no incentive to send their roots deep. Their roots are just going to stay up there, stay up to the close to the top, and that's not going to really be benefiting them in the long term. What you want to be doing is watering your garden deeply, giving it a lot of water, but not necessarily like all the time. It's better to infrequently deeply water than frequently just sprinkle on the surface. And also, there's oxygen in the soil, and plants need oxygen. If your soil is too wet, your plants are not going to be able to access the oxygen and access the other nutrients in your soil, and it's actually going to be harder for them to grow. So it's actually better for the plants to be a little bit on the drier side in the soil or in the garden bed than it is to have them soaking wet. So I'm going to show you a few examples. One is going to be overwatered soil. It's very simple to show this. It's very straightforward. Doesn't need much explanation. The other is going to be kind of when the soil is drying out and when it needs to start getting more water. And the third example is the kind of perfect amount, more plus or minus, of how much water you want to be in the soil and how much water should be accessible by your plants. So what I've done is I've taken a pot and I've put soil in it. I've flooded or saturated that soil full of water because honestly I don't want to be flooding my garden beds. So I'm going to take some out, and we can see it is really wet. It's basically looking like mud right now, and you can see how it like clump kind of just stays together like that. So obviously this is a little extreme with the amount of water that you want in it. It is, but I want to make sure that it's crystal clear of exactly what I'm explaining. So it's so wet I can actually feel it dripping out of my hand. Let's see if I can actually squeeze water out of it. Yep, there we go. So this is obviously overwatered, obviously. Even when I squeezed water out of it, it's still stuck in a clump like this. This is not what you want your soil to be looking like at all. So now let's check my actual garden bed. So in full disclosure, I've only watered my garden probably once this year. That's it. Yes, when I've transplanted seedlings or when I've put in seeds or things like that, I've watered them in, but I haven't actually really watered the garden at all. The greenhouse has been watered twice, just because it's a little warmer in there, but other than that I haven't watered it substantially. So instead of looking at the top of the soil right here, this is obviously dry. You don't want to be looking at the top here because this is not where your roots are. You want to go about 3 to 6 inches down into the soil, right where the plant's roots will be growing, and you want to be taking soil out of there. So let's grab a handful. It looks like that, and let's try squeezing it. So it doesn't really stay together. So I can take my thumb and I can break that up fairly easily. So what that is telling me is that this soil needs more water. And you know, that's not surprising considering I've only watered once this year and we're in the middle of a heat wave. So yes, my garden beds do need some water. Well, at least some parts of them do. We're going to check out another part where I've just watered some carrots in, and we're going to go beside it and we're going to check out that soil over there. So this part of the garden right here is right beside some carrots that I have planted. They're planted along here. I'm not sure if you can see the small seedlings, but I watered them earlier today because they're so small, and I'm still waiting for more seeds to germinate from them. Because they're so small, their roots aren't very deep. So I just have to water them more frequently. So even pulling back the soil here, I can see there's a difference from earlier. This is obviously a lot more damp. So if I dig down a bit more, there we go. So now I'm hitting a kind of a cool area in the soil where the roots typically are. So I'm going to pull out a handful of soil. And we can see it kind of sticks together. I'm going to squeeze it so it balls nicely. I'll take my thumb and it breaks very easily. Like I can just crumble it. So this is what you actually want your soil to be looking like when after you've watered. You don't want to be oversaturating it, but it's kind of a fine line. Once you get a kind of practice on balling your soil, what you're going to be able to do is go to your soil and easily pull back a little bit of it and look at it, look how much moisture is in the soil and be like, yep, it needs water. Or you can also look at it and say, okay, yeah, no, it doesn't need water. It still has a lot of moisture content in there. One of the most common ways for home growers to water is by using a sprinkler just like this. And while it's relatively easy to water a large area with it, you don't need to babysit it, you put it out, you set it, you forget it, you let it do its job, you come back, you move it later on. It's actually not that great for plants. The reason for that is if you're watering in the middle of a day, and you have this watering from overhead, the water can be staying on your leaves of your plants. It can be magnifying the sun rays, and it can actually be burning your plants. Plus, watering overhead can lead to a host of all different diseases also. Another option to water is by using wands like this or nozzles attached to the end of your hose. The great thing about a wand is since it's longer, you can basically place it you can place this head right at the soil level, and you can water the soil, not your plants. And you can target exact areas that you want in your garden. Like for example, earlier I had some carrots I needed to water. So I just took this and I watered that one little area that I need to be watered with carrots, and that was all. So by far, the best way to water your garden, or whether it be your farm or anything like that, is by drip irrigation, or drip-tip. There's many different types, including soaker hoses and stuff like that. But my favorite is pressure regulated emitters. So what that means, like take soaker hoses for example. At the start of the soaker hose, a lot of water will be dispensed. When you go to the end of the soaker hose, you're not going to get so much because all the water pressure is being used up there. With pressure regulated emitters, what's going to happen is those emitters are going to make sure the same amount of water is dispensed from the very start of the drip irrigation as to the very end of it. So you're going to get even watering throughout your whole bed. And it just sends out a little drip at a time. You can get them spaced out 6 inches, 12 inches, 24 inches, and you can get them varying with gallon flow per minute or something like that. That basically just tells you how much water you're going to be dispensing at one given time. So with drip irrigation, you're just going to get a little like sign of water on the very top of the soil. It may not even look like the soil's being watered, but under the soil, that water is going to kind of balloon up, kind of like an upside down funnel like this. So when you actually kind of dig into the soil, that's where you're going to be seeing the water, and that's exactly where you want it. You want it kind of deeper into the soil where your plant roots are. So we have used drip irrigation before at our old place, and we just don't have it set up quite yet at our current setup and with our current garden. We will be moving that route when we have time to dig our trenches, and when we have time to kind of lay out exactly where our sprinkler is going to be going for our fruit trees and things like that. But for now, we're watering either by wand or by sprinkler. The best time to be watering a garden is early in the morning. No matter what kind of method are you using, whether it be drip irrigation, whether it be sprinklers, whether it be a wand or a nozzle, anything like that, you want to be doing it early in the morning. You could start as early as 4 a.m. right as the sun is rising, or you could kind of go as late as 8, 9 a.m. depending on how things are going that day. I know it's difficult for a lot of people because they may not have a timer, they may not have a hose that stays, a sprinkler, they may not have the infrastructure. But what you don't want to be doing is watering your plants in the middle of the day, the hottest part of the day. Because what's going to be happening is you can potentially have hot water in your hose that's going to hit your plant leaves. And also what can be happening, even if your water is not hot in the hose, the water will sit on your leaves, it'll magnify the sun rays and it'll burn your plants. You also want to avoid watering late in the evening, because if you're watering your plants late in the evening or even in the middle of the night, I know some people where we live, they'll go out literally at 10 p.m. or 12 p.m. and water their plants because that's when it's the coolest. You actually don't want your plants to have wet roots because that can lead to disease and that can be leading to other different issues in your plants. So if you like this video and it was helpful, give us a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments about watering, throw them down in the section down below and we will answer them. And of course, if you'd like some more gardening tips, hit the subscribe button.